Okay, welcome everyone, and welcome to the Love Doctor's Hot and Heavy interviews. This is our first one, and I can see someone in the background there. He's in his shorts, Deb.
That's me.
That's Deb Smith's partner.
That's
So
my technical
he's showing off his
support.
legs to the hot. See, I told you it was going to be hot and heavy. So good on you. Thank you very. We're really getting
Oh,
hot
how
and heavy.
funny.
All right. So
There he
basically,
goes.
he's going out. He's shooting out. So basically, sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties with sound. I don't really know what was going on, but we've sorted those out now. I had to log back in for some unknown reason. It just locked out our audio, and I could hear Deb, and she couldn't hear me. So we've sorted that issue out now. Now the thing is, tonight is this is an exclusive interview with Deb Smith from Love Unites. So wave your hand, Deb, so they know it's you and not that masked
Hi,
man
everyone.
running off out into the back there. So and I'm really excited tonight because we've got a number of people online. Can everyone's got a panel just to do some housekeeping, right? During this 45 minute to 60-minute interview, it depends how long we go here. You'll notice that um, there's actually a chat box on the right hand side. So what I'd like you to do is enter your chat, your sort of chat in there. So what you can enter in there is just hi and how you're going. Just let me know that you're out there. Can you see anything coming up, Deb?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm sure it's going to come up because I saw some stuff before. Here it is. Yep. Hi guys. It's a hi from Hobart. Would you believe someone's from Hobart? And we go, hey, looking forward to my first webinar. Hey, we've got a virgin on the line. Okay.
Beautiful.
And hi, Kay and Greg. And we got hi, Tanya here. Excellent, Tanya. Great to see you on the webinar.
Perfect.
And there's actually a lot more people as well. We got some people with question marks. I don't know what the story is there. There's some problems with and I actually have had some problems with this in recent times. I'm sure it's just a software problem. Okay, fantastic. So this is an interview. I'm going to be interviewing Deb Smith. She's from Love Unites. She's a counsellor and specialises in relationships, don't you, Deb? Tell us a bit about
I do
yourself.
indeed. So, actually, for the Adelaide listeners, I am actually an Adelaide girl. So, I've been living in Melbourne for about 13 years. I've worked in the corporate world for many, many years and managed people and relationships and all the joys of HR issues that we deal with within the corporate world. And it's always been a great strength of mine to manage people that I work with. And having had some relationship struggles in the past, and I have been divorced and remarried, it felt like a natural progression for me to move into helping people in relationships. And I saw a real gap in communication. And particularly, I had experienced that myself in my relationships, and so many of my friends and associates that I know have as well. So that's kind of what brought me to doing what I'm doing, and I'm really, really enjoying it.
Awesome. That sounds really good, Deb. Now, could I just ask everyone if they can see my PowerPoint at the moment? Yes, it looks good. Tanya, thank you. You're a darling. You're going to earn a gift for your great comments tonight. So you can see my thing, and you can also see the video of both of us. I just want to check that to make sure that so you don't see me if I'm picking my ear or my nose. Everyone see that? Just type your answer in there. Yep, no worries. Good. Okay, so thank you very much for telling us, sharing that a bit about yourself. So you've worked a lot in the corporate world. Tell us a bit about some of the work that you've done in the corporate world, Debbie.
Yeah, so I've worked in quite a lot of industries. I actually started off in the travel industry. Well, actually, I studied nursing at uni and decided that I didn't want to do that and moved into the travel industry, which I did for a couple of years. So, doing travel consulting. And I remember one day a rep came in from a hotel and he said, gosh, you'd be great at sales. Why don't you apply for this job in hotels? And funnily enough, I moved into the hotel industry for a couple of years as a salesperson doing, corporate sales. And then from there, I got poached, funnily enough, still doing sales, but in the health insurance industry. And I did that for a few years with MBF, and again, selling corporate health plans. And then my husband at the time wanted to move to Melbourne, so over we came. And I started working for a medico legal company, funnily enough. And for those of you that don't know what that is, they basically do independent medical assessments for insurance companies, superannuation companies. If someone's trying to get a payout for their super or total and permanent disablement, they would do an independent medical assessment. So it was funny how I kept coming back into that health industry. from there, I worked for a couple of companies for a few years doing that. And then I started doing an account management role, which is a company I've been working for and still do some work for them for 11 years. And that's been managing people, program and project management, and managing teams of people and outsourced merchandising, customer experience. So all sorts of people stuff. So that's, I guess, what I've been doing in the corporate world. Yeah,
Oh,
bit
it
of an overview.
sounds like you've had a lot of experience with people, and I mean that's really important to be able
Yeah.
to relate to people, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. And, everyone is unique. And I think though all of us, go to work every day and have these great jobs, it's very hard sometimes to go to work and hide the stuff that's going on in your personal life. And often there's some difficult things going on in your personal life that, like it or not, we take to work sometimes.
Yeah, I know. And sometimes we bring work to home,
Yes,
right? So when you're stressed at work, you
absolutely. And
bring it home. So
yeah, you got to get that balance right.
yeah, the balance is very important. And,
Mm,
we're all about sort of helping people find that balance, not losing their job, but
exactly.
also not losing their relationship as well. And well, a lot of the problems that we're finding now is that people are getting so caught up in lifestyle and trying to find the perfect lifestyle and, have a career. And women are going out and working as well. And they also want to have kids and stuff, that the balance has been totally lost. So,
Yes.
I hope that relationship counselors become more and more of a valued commodity in society, on the Australian community anyway. So yeah,
Definitely. I think that's absolutely right because I am one of those women. And I think that we live in a different world to what women did 20 years ago. And we do want to have a career and, kids and running a house. And, some of us that are a bit more traditional, which I am, I like to have a meal on the table for my family every night. And I still want to do my job and I do this and I've started writing a book. So, I don't have a lot of spare time, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
okay, fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your book. What are you writing on? What do you think is important in counselling and
Um,
relationships?
so I guess communication is the big thing that I focus on. And I'm actually writing a book about communication in relationships.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think, I've had years and years and years of experience, and I actually teach people how to present and communicate more effectively as well in the corporate world. And I don't think it matters where that communication is happening. It's just so important to get it right. And I think once you go home and once there's emotion involved, suddenly it just makes it so much more difficult to communicate because it's your heart and we're a lot more sensitive with our partners, I think, than a conversation that we would have with someone in the workplace.
This
So
is a good distinction though. Why do you think it like people come home and they're more sensitive towards their partner than they are at work? They can't transfer the resilience they have at work and have that with their partner. In other words, their partner can hurt them, they can affect them. What do you think is the key driver for that?
yeah, I think the key driver for that one, Alex, is that we care about that person so much, and it's so important to us about um, how they feel about us, and we want everything to be good with us all the time. So we probably feel a little bit more judged by our partners than potentially we do with work colleagues. I think that certainly at work, it's easy not to care because you don't have to care at work. You can just go, well, whatever, I don't really care what that person thinks, and you can just get on with your day.
Yeah.
Whereas when you get home, it does matter what your partner thinks. It's important to you. You have an emotional connection with that person, and you want to be aligned, and you want them to be happy and, happy with what you're doing and care about you and support you.
Okay, I've got a question coming through. Sorry, you might lose my overheads. Which basically says it's Tanya Grabus is saying that she's been with her husband for a long time and they got children. So sorry, I probably told you surname and I probably shouldn't have. Now you'll probably sue me, but that's all right. So they've
We
had
won't
some
tell
rough
anyone, will
issues.
you?
We won't tell you. This is all confidential, by the way. Anyone who comes online and watches this, just keep it within house. So, because some people are going to be divulging some personal stuff, and that's okay. So they're committed to making their relationship better and solid, but both of us have a tendency to get defensive quite quickly if we don't feel supported.
Yes.
Can you suggest how we reduce the potential conflict and reinforce positivity in the relationship? What a great question.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Most definitely. I think that, in any relationship, and, I'm not going to pretend I have a perfect one because I think I'd be an idiot to say that it's not real. No one has a perfect relationship. And I think that often we do get defensive. And, I'm in a relationship with stepchildren. And the first moment that I mention one of my stepchildren's name, often my husband can instantly get on the defense. And I have had to learn with him that I have to be careful about the way I approach it. So we tend to know with our partner what their triggers actually are. If you've been with your partner for a little while, you know the things that, rub them up the wrong way, I guess. And so it's really important that when you approach them to think about your tone of voice, but to actually think about what the outcome of the conversation that you want to be before you actually start having that conversation. And then work through in your head what are the possible reactions that I might get from my partner, because you know that partner better than anyone else does. So you're going to know exactly, a couple of different ways that they might react. So softly approach, and as soon as someone starts getting defensive, I think it's important to actually say to them, look, darling, babe, whatever you call each other, you might have a pet name. Look, I'm talking to you about this because it's really important to me. And the last thing I'm trying to do is upset you. And I think it's really important to be honest with them and speak from the heart.
Yeah, great answer. Yeah, no, I totally relate to that.
Yeah,
So,
can't we all?
yeah, so I mean, there's a problem though in relationships that we can trigger each other off emotionally very easily. So sometimes you can't really predict the outcome of what you're saying. So how can you manage situations like that where Tanya's saying they get defensive and it gets emotional very quickly and they
Yeah.
can retaliate to each other very easily. So what would you recommend in that situation? I'll put you on the
The best
spot,
thing
haven't
I
I?
think, what's that?
I'll put you on the spot, didn't I?
No, no, that's okay. I think the best thing sometimes is to just walk away from the conversation. It's really easy to get heated. And of course, once they start getting triggered, you get triggered, and then people start raising their voices, and it ends up being a crazy fight that probably never even needed to start. Um, so what I suggest is that you just take a breather and go, you know what? I think it's a good idea for us both to take some time to calm down, and let's come back and have this conversation when we're both calm. So rather than say, you're yelling at me, you're going nuts at me, I'm not having this conversation with you right now because you're doing my head in, or however it is that you're going to get angry, stop with the you. You're both responsible for the conversation. So it needs to be, you know what? We're both getting cross at the moment. I don't think this is a good time for us to continue this conversation. Let's just take some time out, calm down a little bit, and let's come back together when we're ready to have a calm conversation.
Okay, that's a very good idea. So walk away for a while and clear the head and
Walk
then come back and have
away,
the
take a
conversation.
breath.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's a really
absolutely.
good advice. Now, someone has said when you are in a deep spiral of negativity, what can a person do to reverse it? Do you have three simple tips?
Wow, I've probably got about 33 simple tips.
Give us your three best ones, though. Give us your three best.
Um, I think number one is to move yourself out of the negative. So before you actually open your mouth and have that conversation, think about how you can actually deliver that in a positive way. I think they talk about for every five negative things, it takes 10 positive things to wipe some of the negative. So you need to start having a positive outlook. You get what you put out there. So if you put out negative, you're going to get negative back. So that's the number one thing that I think that you need to think about. The second thing probably that you need to think about is, if it's going on a negative spiral, what are some of the key reasons for that? And there'll be some root causes for that, and they may not be the surface things that you think they might be. So probably a good time to go and talk to someone and actually get some help and get to the bottom of what the reasons are. Often, there can be a lot of resentment, and it could be about something that happened years ago in your relationship that, consciously you're not even aware of, that's actually affecting you both. So talking to someone, someone that's not involved, an independent person, whether that's a counselor, psychologist, life coach, whoever it may be, I think it's a great idea to do that and get to the bottom of what it is. And the third thing that I would say is that you both need to probably take a little look in each other's backyards and see what's really going on with you as an individual. Because often there's stuff going on with us personally that we put out there that it affects our relationship, and there's stuff we need to deal with individually. So as much as it can be a little bit confronting, I think it's a good idea to take a bit of a look at yourselves individually and see what's really going on for both of you.
Okay, good,
Is that all right
fantastic.
for a top three?
Yeah, top three is good. So, number one reason was what was the first reason? No, the first tip, sorry.
Now you're going to test me. I don't remember everything you said, Alex.
I'm testing myself. So, someone
Isn't
by
it
the,
terrible?
so someone said thanks, awesome response. And first one was look at your negativity, what caused it,
There
was
you
it?
go. Positive things. So make sure the positive outweighs the negative.
That's right. And the second
You
thing
get what you put out there.
was
Thank you
to,
for your help with
look
that
for an
advice.
independent person to give you some advice and guide and instruct you, whether that be a
Yeah.
professional or non-professional. And the third thing is to look in your backyard and see what the root cause of it might be rather than your relationship. Because a lot of people do that.
Yes.
They put that on their partner. They say, my partner made me, you made me angry. And
Yes.
that's really, I think, a really disempowering way to actually accuse someone. Because as soon as you say
Mm,
that, you're saying that they're not responsible for the way I feel my anger. So you immediately disempower yourself. You lose life. So
that's
what I recommend to clients is to say, well, hang on, no, I didn't. They didn't make me angry. I can still say they made me angry, but I can't tell myself that they made me angry. I still have to take ownership and responsibility for that and say how I caused
yeah,
that to
and
happen.
exactly. And I mean, I had an example of this just on the weekend with my husband. We had a bit of a biff about, one of the kids. And,
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend my relationship's perfect. It's not. And, he said, why do you do this to me? You make me so angry. And I said, actually, no, you're choosing that behavior. And he gets really cranky with me when I say that. But, that's the reality. And you've got to take responsibility. And as do I when I don't react in a very nice way either. So, none of us are perfect. We're not going to get it right all of the time. And I think that we need to be realistic and not hard on ourselves that we aren't going to get it right all the time. But I think the most important thing is to acknowledge when you don't get it right and take responsibility and change your behavior in the future.
Yeah, no, good point. So you take it on board and then you sort of reanalyze it after and you look
Yeah,
at where it went wrong and why you think the other person made you angry, right? Or why your partner
that's
made
right.
you angry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And what I always tell couples is that when they're having an argument, it's okay to have arguments because a lot of people are very sensitive to arguments. Oh, we shouldn't argue, they say, and they try and avoid arguments. And of course, it ends up in exploding later on. So what I tell
mm,
them is that you should really confront your arguments. You should do controlled arguing, I call it, and I play a little game for that as well. So what I try and do is rapidly condition couples to actually argue so that they get comfortable with it, but also resolve the argument. That's where the difference is because a lot of them just have blow ups and there's no resolution after. They don't actually come back and talk about it. Okay, so let me ask you what you think the fundamentals to make a relationship work. I mean, you've already mentioned communication, but what do you think the fundamentals are?
so I've written a couple notes here because I'm really forgetful, as you just found out firsthand.
Yeah.
Um, so the biggest thing I think is having aligned values. I think that when we get together with someone, often we get so caught up in the lust, I guess, of a relationship and all of the lovely things that happen when we first meet someone in that whole honeymoon period. But we all have fundamental values that are ingrained into us. And I think that when those values aren't aligned, that's where the cracks actually start to form for people. So I think it's really important to ask those questions when you're first meeting someone and getting to know them to know, what are the things that, they believe in, because they're the things that we're groomed into us as a kid that we don't even realize, we're groomed
Can you give us
as
some
we grow up.
examples? Can you give us some examples of values that would be like not,
Yeah, so
fundamentals?
as an example, your family might be really important to you. So,
Yep.
if you're going to meet someone and family's not important to them, that's going to be a problem for you because that's a fundamental value for you. So, if family's not important to them, chances are your family's not going to be important to them either. And if that means a lot to you, that is going to come between you. Now, I'm not saying that it couldn't work. Absolutely, it can still work, but I think they're the things that you need to talk about, and often they're the things that in relationships that people start dueling a little bit about when those core values and those things that people have really strong belief around aren't exactly aligned. So to me, that's a really, really, really important thing in any relationship. um,
Someone's
and I
mentioned
think
here, just I just want to interject. Someone has said here, intimacy is a very important thing for them. So as like a
yes, yeah.
fundamental, yeah.
Yeah.
do you want to comment on that maybe and help the person who asked the question?
Yeah, so I mean, if intimacy is important to you, I would suggest that that would probably be physical touch. So if you're with a partner that's not affectionate, that could be a real problem for you. And generally, we're either affectionate or we're not. So if you're not an affectionate person by nature, it is a real effort to be affectionate. So I'm not sure if the person that asked a question is in a relationship or not, and whether that's an issue for them. But I think that around that, we need to be careful of our expectations from our partner, because if it doesn't come naturally to them, then that could potentially be a problem if there's not an understanding there.
Yeah, well, let's say the person is in a relationship, but intimacy is a problem. So, what would you suggest to the person? How could they, you know, get greater intimacy with their partner and get to a level where they're satisfied with that sort of level of touch and intimacy?
Yeah, yeah. I think from an intimacy perspective, the connection needs to be in the right place. So I would suggest that maybe that connection isn't right for you right now. And again, some courageous conversations potentially need to take place with your partner to actually discuss, what it is for you that's missing, and where that misalignment is. So if you've had the intimacy before in your relationship, then you can definitely reintroduce that intimacy, but it's about finding the connection again
Yeah.
and working out where that blockage is that stopped that for you. Again, that may not be something that you can resolve yourself, and it may be worth actually talking to an independent party about that.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, what happens
There's,
when you have children? The intimacy seems to go a bit. What could people do there, and what might be the cause of that? I mean, you've probably been that
well,
through
I
that
think it's
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I came into an instant family, so I actually haven't given birth to any children. I acquired an instant family, and the boys were 7 and 10 when I met their dads. So, that kids coming into a relationship, kids aren't easy. And all of a sudden, your whole focus isn't about you or your partner or the two of you anymore. Suddenly, it's all about kids, and your whole life revolves around kids, whether they're toddlers and they need that 24/7 care, or even if they're at school and you're racing them around and there's things after school, and by the time you get home, cook dinner, eat dinner, do the kids homework and go to bed, you're bloody exhausted, and the
Yeah.
last thing that you want to think about is having sex with your partner sometimes. So I think it's really, really important to actually, have that quality time with each other and allocate that time. And I know a lot of people talk about having a date night, and some people go, "Oh God, that's a bit stupid. We don't need to have a date night." But you do need to have a date night. Why shouldn't you have quality time together? It's really, really important that you guys put the work into your relationship and have that time together that's just about you two. You don't have to worry about the kids having a fight, or mess in the house, or the dishes to clean up, or the million things that you haven't done around the house, and the load of washing, and I can go on forever about all the things you need to do. But sometimes you've just got to take the time out with each other, and I think it's really important to try and do that at least for a couple of hours a week. And I suggest the couples that I talk with, a little activity called Choose Your Own Adventure. And what that is that each partner actually takes it in turns, and they have to choose their own adventure for the week. Now, that can be staying in at night, going to the movies. It could just be taking the dogs for a walk on the weekend. I don't care what it is, but it's got to be something that they know their partner will enjoy. And the reason I get them to take it in turns is so that they both get to choose things that they enjoy, and there's no resentment around that. And it's a really easy thing to do. And you can't tell me that if it's not important to you, that you can't find a couple of hours a week to make that stuff happen for you and your partner.
Yeah, I agree. I think people should make that time. It's very important. It's, belief building in the
Absolutely.
relationship, connection building. Now, I've got a couple of answers that come through, or questions or statements. One person said, great point about beliefs, Deb. My ex-husband and I had very different beliefs, cultural, spiritual, family, child raising. We are no longer together. I'm sorry to hear that, but, there's light at the end of the tunnel. The big communication to unpack these issues didn't happen early on, and it also included a misalignment on intimacy levels. So that's really good. That ties in all the stuff that you've talked about. And then someone else
Yeah,
has said, yeah, go on, yeah.
sorry. I was just going to say, no one teaches us how to do relationships. When we go to school, and it's a real passion of mine that, I'd love to do some stuff with teenage kids to teach them about boundaries and value alignment and what they need, and being confident about what they want to get out of a relationship. And at some stage, I'll get to doing it like the list of a million things I want to do. um, but I think that we're so hard on ourselves when things don't work out. And having been through a marriage and a divorce, it's a really, really tough thing to go through. And I think that when you go through that, you just think it's the end of the world and you can't possibly meet anyone else and it will never work out for you again. And I think that, you know, I urge you to see the bigger picture, because there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's about having a positive approach towards relationships. But the next time you get into a relationship, doing it differently to how you did before, so you're not going to go through the same patterns and end up in the same position.
Yeah, no, good answer. Yeah, someone else said as well, I heard people on the radio talking about going on an overseas holiday and leaving children at home. Oh my God, that's paradise. Interesting
Yeah, I'm
discussion
about to do it.
followed. Hey, well, tell us about it. Tell us about it. What are you doing? Where are
Oh,
you
I've got the
going?
most amazing trip coming up. So I'm turning 40 this year. And I said
By
to
the
my
way,
husband,
can I just interrupt? The person said that they were babies. They left the babies at home and they went for an overseas holiday. Well, that's courageous, I
oh,
reckon. So yeah,
it is
sorry to
courageous.
interrupt. Yeah,
No, that's okay. We're leaving teenagers at home, and admittedly, they are staying with their mother. So, all is not lost. But we are off on a trip for 6 weeks actually, without the kids. We're going around the world on an amazing trip. But to me, that's really important, because I think there's also a lot of people that live in blended families like I do, with the whole step parenting thing going on.
yeah,
And to me, that's actually a fundamental thing that's very, very important to me, because that's my quality time with my husband. We still take the kids on holidays. We took them to Disney World last year in Orlando and Memphis, and we took them on a wonderful trip last year. But it's about getting a balance, and they understand that they're not going to be going on every holiday with us, and that we also need our time. I don't know how much they like it, but they understand it.
okay. So they're having some withdrawals, or they're going to hold a big party when you're out of town.
I don't know. They'll be at their mother's house, so don't
Of course
care.
they will. Don't take the keys off them before they head off before you head off. Don't trust them with keys
Yes,
or
I'll
anything like
hide my
that.
car keys, that's for sure.
Car keys, hide your house keys because they're going to throw a party. So be careful. All right. Well, good for you. You're a good example. It's very important as practitioners like you and I, you and me, that we actually follow through and practice what we preach. So, my wife and
Absolutely.
I, we do date nights regularly. We trade these love token things that I've got, that I've invented, that you trade, and some of my clients have got them, and you trade these love tokens, which is like adventure things that you were talking about, like massages and movies. And, you guys need to do more of that. You need to, um, work really hard at trying to achieve that quality time together and that connection. And excuses like children is not really an excuse. You're just sorry, it's not
Mm,
really a real excuse. It's used as an excuse, but you can't fall into those bad habits. It's really important to, you know,
yeah.
analyze what you're trying to do. What I tell couples is that relationship is priority number one over and above your children. And I mean,
Yes.
a lot of couples that come see me nearly fall off their chair when I tell them that. But that's all right. They still pay me at the end of the session, so I don't mind
And I
even.
think we've got to remember that the kids aren't there forever, are they, Alex? I mean, at some stage the kids are going to leave home, and then where does that leave your relationship? And I think that, a lot of people get to a position where they're, in their early 50s, their kids are starting to leave home, and all of a sudden they're going, God, we don't even know each other. What is our relationship? What does it represent? And I think we're seeing a lot more people split up in that age group now, because they're
Yeah.
not connected in their relationship anymore, because their life has become about their children.
Yeah, I mean, recent statistics show that when children leave home, the couples are twice as more likely to divorce because
Yes.
there's no sort of those traditional values where you have to stay together to death do you part sort of attitudes. So
Mm.
people are not going to hang
Yeah.
around. And women are more independent, so they don't need to hang around in a relationship. They can support themselves. So
Yeah, we
those,
don't need you, man.
uh, well, that's what you say, but anyway, okay. Let's not go to that high ground. Okay, we're gonna have a fight on my first webinar, and I don't want to do that. Okay, love that. Someone said, "Love that your kids are a mess if the relationship is a mess." More perspective required. Love that your kids are a mess if the relationship is a mess. What a great. That's a really good response, actually. They're basically saying that if your relationship is a mess, your kids are destabilized as well by that because
Yes, they will be.
they can feel when you're having problems in a relationship. Can you comment a bit about that?
Yeah, I think kids are amazingly perceptive, and I certainly went on a pretty big crash course myself when I moved into a house with two children because we were still trying to establish our relationship together and how that was going to work. And let me tell you, those kids milked that to the nth degree. And the moment there was a crack, whoa, they were in there to try and manipulate. And it was really interesting to watch that. And now I reflect on that. I mean, we're 7 years down the track now, so we're in a pretty different place. Um, but it amazes me when couples come and see me and they talk about the kids are behaving badly and we don't know how to manage it. And when you sit and say to them, well, when you guys are happy, the kids are actually going to be happy, they don't normally believe you when you first say that. But I think as they go through the journey with you and start changing the way they behave and forming a better relationship together, they
Yeah.
certainly do notice the result in the behavior of their children for sure.
Oh, fantastic. And you've been through it, so good for you. Now, so I want to ask you, I want to go and explore a bit more about what are some communication problems that couples have these days? Like, what are you starting to see in your practice with communication difficulties?
Generally, a lack of it is the main thing.
Really?
I think that, um, you know, it's just easier to sweep it under the carpet sometimes because you're either too scared to have the conversation because of the reaction you'll get,
Yeah,
or you don't know how to approach the conversation with your partner. And so it's just easier just to ignore it. And what actually happens after time is it absolutely blows way out of proportion because you let things build and build and build and build and you just explode. Um, so the big thing I think is not communicating and just not knowing how to communicate the things that they actually want to get across. And I think often between any partnership, you generally have different communication styles. And they often don't gel with each other. So I know we hear the whole, women are emotional, men aren't emotional, and I don't necessarily believe that from a gender perspective that one is more than the other, but we are all different. And it's about understanding how your partner communicates so you know how to talk to them to get the best outcome for both of you.
yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so more communication's the key, isn't it? And communication which is, respectful and, nice and addressing issues at the same time, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and I think, sorry, Alex, I was just going to say one other thing. We talked a little bit earlier about,
yeah,
women having careers now and working and, blah, blah, blah. And I know, like, I like to have a meal on the table. Frankly, I don't like my husband in the kitchen. That's my domain, and he's rubbish at cooking. And I like to do it, but that's a choice that I make.
yeah,
However, our deal is, that he cleans up. So if he's not pulling his weight, which is often the case, I will actually say to him, aren't I terrible? Lucky you're still not in the room. Um, I would actually say to him, babe, the deal is that you're supposed to clean up. You're going to be doing that tonight? And he knows, like, the moment I say it, he goes, yeah, yeah, I know that. I know that. I'm going to do it a little bit later. I'll do it in the morning. You know.
yeah, right.
So
Don't
sometimes
trust him,
it's
no.
I don't because I get up in the morning and it horrifies me.
Yeah,
But he does eventually do it. But sometimes I just need to give a little bit reminder. But I can choose to nag his butt about it and be a cow to him, or I can choose to ask him nicely, and I go the nice route. Um, and I think it's showing that respect when you're talking to each other and actually thanking each other for the little things that you do, whether that's cooking dinner or putting the dishes in the dishwasher or emptying it or putting the rubbish out or whatever it may be.
yeah.
Was certainly a huge learning that I had from one relationship to the next is that often you just feel like you're taken for granted. So it's really important to thank your partner for the little things in life.
Yeah, I mean that's a great sort of guide for people or a tip is that you shouldn't like leave things unsaid. Like if you feel, I mean, sometimes we don't want to let go like that and be vulnerable and expose how we really feel about our partner. But sometimes you just got to show the love and thank them and give them a hug and a kiss. I think that's really important. Even if you feel
Yeah,
you're not getting it back, because research has shown, their psychologists did this study a year or two ago, and they found that what happens is two relationship people get together, and then over time they don't. One person feels unappreciated, and then they show no appreciation back to their partner, and then that partner feels insecure, and the insecurity grows in the relationship because they both don't feel appreciated. So someone's got to instigate that at some point, right, Deb?
Absolutely. And actually, I caught up with some friends on Saturday night and I had a really funny conversation. I have this gorgeous friend. She's this beautiful little Greek lady and she's seeing actually a guy that I dated a few times many years ago, who's a great friend of mine. And she was talking about the fact that now they've moved in together, she does everything around the house. She's a total control freak. Everything has to be done a certain way. So
Yeah,
that's a choice that she makes to do that. So she doesn't have the right to resent her partner for not doing the things around the house. But we had a dinner party, well, we went out to dinner and we'd had quite a few drinks. And during dinner, she announced to him that she hadn't done his washing for him. And she just said, by the way, I think now's a good time just to let you know I haven't done your washing for you. And then she just kind of kept drinking. And I went, sorry, what? Really?
I think she
And I
should
said
stop
to her,
drinking.
well, she had had a few, and I think that she'd finally plucked the courage, but hello, timing, not great. But I said to her afterwards, what's your purpose of saying that and announcing that at dinner? And that's pretty much what her partner said. Not sure why we're having an announcement about that at dinner, babe.
Yeah,
So, rather than be so scared to have the conversation, and I'm not sure why she was so frightened to have the conversation, but you know, it's about delivering that message to your partner saying, I'm really struggling to get everything done at the moment, and it would be really great if you could help me. It would make me really happy if you could help me do this or whatever it is. And I don't know many people that if someone said to them, it would make me really happy if you could help me do that, that would say no to that.
yeah. Ask nicely.
Yes. Put your manners on.
Okay. All right, fantastic. Now, I'm really keen to see, and this is main reason why I've got you on the call tonight, and I approached you to start off with, and I'm going to tell people a little bit about the Passion and Pleasure program that we're a part of as well at the end. So
Right.
stay online. We've got maybe another 15, 20 minutes. So everyone who's online, please stay online because I've got some important things to cover towards the end. I really want you to talk about the HBDI scale or inventory,
Yeah.
okay, which is
Yep.
sort of more like a structured type of inventory that you use with couples to work out how their brain works in relation to communication and how it affects their relationship in a positive or negative fashion. So can you tell us a
Yeah.
bit about it?
So this is interesting. This is actually a tool that I learned in the corporate environment, and one thing that I do is teach people on how to present, so presentation skills, workshops, and that kind of stuff. And that's when I was first introduced to this HBDI because someone did my profile, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" and made such a difference in the way you can actually present and communicate to a group of people.
Yeah,
We talk about it stands for the Herman Brain Dominance Instrument, and we talk about using your whole brain rather than just talking with one preference.
yeah,
So what it is, it's a profile that you do online. It takes about half an hour. Um, and I love this so much that I decided to go and become a practitioner so I could actually do this. There is no one else that uses this with couples. So I think I'm the only one, as far as I'm aware, that actually uses this. It's used in the corporate environment.
and I'll
The
be the
wonderful
second
thing,
one using it.
what's that? You're going to be the second.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have told you about it.
What?
So the wonderful thing about it is to give you a little bit of history, and I'm going to refer to my notes because one thing I'll talk about in a sec is that little blue quadrant is not my forte. That's the one about facts and figures. So I have
Okay.
to write these things down. I don't remember them. About 5 million people have actually done this assessment. It
Wow.
originated in the US. Um, and it was the work of a couple of neurosurgeons that did quite a bit of research back in the 40s. And they were the ones that actually discovered the left and the right brain, which we all know about,
Yeah.
your left and your right brain being your creative side, etc. Um, and obviously from doing that, they learned about, this is how we communicate, this is how we think, this is how we make decisions. And some of us have a preference more for one side of that brain than the other.
Yeah.
They then went and did some further research, and there's a gentleman by the name of Ned Herman, who is one of the people that discovered this tool, and he was actually a trainer. And the biggest frustration that he had was he would go and train a group of people, come out of that training, speak to 4 different people, and they had 4 different interpretations of what that training was all about. And it frustrated the bejesus out of him because he's like, I don't understand how people could go away with so many different messages when I told them all the same thing. So he got really curious and wanted to do some more research and testing and understand more about, how we actually absorb things, how we think, how we communicate, and why this was actually the case. So after stacks of years of research and testing, they actually discovered that there were four hemispheres in the brain, which we're going to talk about in a sec, which you'll be able to see on the slide. And then there's also an upper mode, which is that blue and the yellow, and a lower mode, which is the green and the red in that slide. Now, the lower mode is our feeling brain, and the upper mode is our thinking brain. And in the 60s, through a whole lot of experimentation, when they were learning about all of this, they cured a rare form of epilepsy, which was amazing. And they did this by cutting the corpus callosum. Now, for those of you that don't know what the corpus callosum is, it's a little thing inside your head that actually joins your left and your right side of your brain. Now, what they did was they actually tested this on cats, God forbid, and they cut the corpus callosum and fixed this rare type of epilepsy where the right hand couldn't talk to the left hand, and all of a sudden, these people suffering this rare form of epilepsy were cured. Now, of course, we all need our corpus callosum to be attached so that each side can talk to each other. So they only do that for the people with this form of epilepsy. Thank God.
They don't do the full blown anymore, I don't think. I think it's
No, they
been
don't.
medically unsanctioned, yeah, banned
Yeah,
basically.
correct.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of elements about the HBDI, and I can talk about it for hours. But what I'll do is actually just take you through this slide that we've got in front of us.
Awesome.
Now, I just want to stress, this is quite a general overview. There is quite a lot more depth in detail that when you actually get your profile done on this, because I hate that everyone goes, well, you're a yellow quadrant or you're a red quadrant, because that's not the case. We have some of all of them. So what this is about is understanding what your preferences are. So you can see all the words that go around that wheel basically. So if we look at the A quadrant, that's one's rational self. Often you'll see people that are financial people or accountants, people that love numbers and analytics and all that kind of stuff. And when they talk to you, and when you start thinking about this, think about people that talk to you and they're always going on about facts and figures. And I'm sure you're one of those, Alex, because you're a psychologist, and that's, the basic of a lot of fundamental stuff of psychology is understanding the statistical stuff around human behavior.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that have a high blue quadrant love, analytics, statistics, all that kind of stuff. Not my forte. In fact, that's my lowest quadrant, which is why I need to write all that stuff down. So
Okay.
though I have an interest in it, I don't love to talk about it all the time,
Yeah.
right? The next quadrant is the B quadrant, which is that green quadrant. And this is what we call the safekeeping quadrant. This is super organized people. They love detail. And when they tell you a story, think about someone that talks to you and tells you a story, and they tell you so much detail. It's like blow by blow of everything that happened in that scenario. And sometimes if you're not detail orientated, you're sitting there going, chop, chop, get the story out. Tell me the end, this is killing me. So, when these people do anything, they're super, super organized in life, and they love to be organized. That's just how they operate.
Yeah.
And someone that isn't like that can be quite frustrating for them. The red quadrant, which is the C quadrant, is the feeling self. So this is people, the emotional people that show their emotion, that tell you how they're feeling, that they're really expressive. And if you want to know how someone's feeling or have a heart to heart, it's a red quadrant preference that you want to go and have that conversation with. The D quadrant is the experimental self. So these are the entrepreneurial people that like to break the rules, do things differently, and often can be highly creative. That's actually my highest quadrant. So a lot of people look at that yellow quadrant and think we're a little bit crazy, and I'm okay with that. But they're not the status quo. They do things differently. So when you look at all of these and your profile gets done, you'll actually find out what your preferences are in each area. So I want you to imagine for a sec that your husband will go, what everyone says. Your husband is a high blue quadrant, so it's all about facts and figures, and you're a high red quadrant, so super emotional and expressive. And he whips out a whole lot of facts about something, and it totally winds you up, and you are going to have a very emotional reaction and probably cry and go off your head at him, okay?
Yeah.
Whereas when you talk to him and talk to him using that emotional language, it does his head in because he doesn't care. He just wants to know the facts and the figures. Now, this is an interesting scenario because I remember back when I worked in with a manager whom I hated. I couldn't stand him. And he'd ring me. He lived in Sydney. I was in Melbourne. And we just never got along. And every conversation I had with him frustrated me and frustrated him at his end.
Yep.
Until I learnt this HBDI, and all of a sudden the penny dropped and I went, oh my God, now I know why I frustrate him so much. So I started talking to him differently. And instead of using my creative, and I'm also a high red quadrant, is I started using facts and figures and just told him short and sharp, succinct, exactly what he needed to know. And all of a sudden this relationship blossomed. And I was like, my God, I can't believe how powerful this actually is.
Yep.
So when you know what someone's quadrant preference is, it starts to make it really easy to start talking to them in a different way. And it's actually very difficult when you first start it because it's so obscure for you and just doesn't come naturally to you at all. But once you actually start learning to do it and having some wins from it, not only does it help you in your relationship, it helps you in life. And the best outcome that you want is to be talking in a way to use all of those quadrants, so it doesn't matter who you talk to, what you're talking about, you're going to use the whole brain and be able to connect with everyone that you're talking to.
So what you're saying is you identify your strong suits and then you work out ones you're not so using as much, parts of your brain, in other words, and as represented by your communication, and then you start to use all and become flexible across all the quadrants.
Exactly right.
Okay, that sounds excellent.
It's
Yeah,
very powerful.
it is very powerful. It's a game changer,
It
isn't
is a
it?
game changer and so much fun to teach people.
Awesome, fantastic. Now, do you want to go on to the next slide, or do you want to? Is there anything else you want to add? Is there any questions that people want to ask about the HBDI or the Herman inventory? Just type your questions as we go along. So run us through some of these core needs that you're talking about. It's coming up in a moment on your screen, which is the next slide.
Okay. So this is yeah, I popped this in here because I thought this is actually an Anthony Robbins thing, and to be honest, I'm not a massive fan of Anthony Robbins, but I do really love this. And this is something that I use with the couples that come to see me to talk about some of the things that are more important to them than others. So let's just quickly run through them. We all have all of these needs. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that we need all of these things in our life. But some of us, depending on the stage of life that we're in, need some of these more than others. So the first one is certainty. So that's about feeling secure. And that's whether that's secure in your relationship, whether that's secure in the place that you're living, secure in the job that you're in, and having consistency. So knowing what to expect, I guess, is probably the best way to describe that, and not having too many surprises, liking to be in control, even though you never are. The second one being uncertainty, which is the polar opposite to that. And that's the need for variety and challenge. And if I look at this from a relationship perspective, someone that loves uncertainty is the type of person that would go and cheat in a relationship if they're not feeling satisfied in their relationship. So for those people, it's really important to make sure that they get the excitement in their relationship and all of the different elements rather than that Groundhog Day feeling in a relationship. So that's super, super important for those people. The next one is significance, and I think we've all got a little bit of this. We all need to feel important, needed, wanted, and worthy of love. And there's not many people that don't have a strong need for that. And if we're not feeling that in our relationship, that's often when we can get quite frustrated because we're not feeling appreciated or we're not feeling loved. And it might just be simply because we're not being told that, and we verbally need to be told that we're loved. Love and connection again. So that's when I talk about an emotional connection and intellectual connection. And for some, that can be a spiritual connection as well. And then the second two that I've separated because they are a little bit different is growth. And that's the need for constant development emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually, and also contribution. So that's giving beyond ourselves, whether that be volunteer work or doing things for other people.
Yeah.
And those two are separated because I think that we get to a point in our lives where those are more important. And generally, once you sort of hit that 40 mark, the growth and development and the contribution become a lot more important than potentially what they are in your 20s, as an example. So I use this with my clients to just talk about, well, what are the important things for them to make sure that they both know each other's key things. And there'll always be two or three things out of that list that are more important to you than other ones. And it's just an awareness, really, so your partner knows what they are and can make sure that they actually fulfill those core needs for you.
Okay, good. That sounds really, really good. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for that so far. And HBDI really, really interests me. And I think I'm going to do an assessment with you. I'm stating that now in front of everyone. So
Ha ha ha, great.
I'm gonna book in for an assessment, I think, because I wanna do it so and see, what it's all about. Um, is there anything that you can offer people if they want to do it and they're interested? Or what could you offer them for the call? People who've made the effort to actually be on here tonight and have invested their time for this education, what can you offer them?
So did you do a little slide on the deal that I told you about?
No, I haven't done any slide. You can just tell them.
Okay. So what we talked about is, I guess, for taking the time tonight, and thanks everyone for coming along. It's been great to talk to you all. Is to give you something, a little bit of an offer, to incentivize you to actually have this done. So normally the cost to do it is $150 per profile, and then I spend probably about an hour and a half with you to debrief you on that profile, which I charge around $200 to do for that. So you're looking at about $500.
Yeah,
What I've said tonight is for anyone on the call tonight, let's say the first three people, I'll put it out there. If you would like to have this done with your partner, that I'll actually do your second profile for free. So that means it'll be $350 for the two of you to have your profiles done, and for me to consult both of you about, the detail of your profile and how you guys can communicate differently in the future. So that's two profiles done and a consult with me for $350, which is a great deal.
that's awesome. I think that's an excellent deal. So what do they need to do? I mean, the first three people need to send you an email. What do they do?
Yeah, so if you want to go onto my website, you can just click on the contact page to contact me or give me a call. So my website is www.loveunites.com.au. So just click on the contact page, and if you can mark that you were on the webinar tonight with our love doctor alongside me on the screen, and we'll get you booked in to get your profiles done. It takes about half an hour, as I said, to do it online, couple of weeks for the assessment to come back, and then we book in and go through it together. And if you're in another state, we can do that on Skype together.
Yeah, well, someone said, what about a phone number? Just go to Deb's website, loveunites.com.au, and there's a mobile number. Then you can give her a call directly and
There
speak,
is, thank
and
you.
you can tee that up. So that's there for that. So what I want to do, just to finish off the webinar, is to go through some interesting research has come to light in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. And the reason I want to include this, as we only got about 5 minutes left, so what I want to do is talk to you. I want you to really get your head around this idea that the whole idea that of John Gray, the men are from Mars, women from Venus, is totally false. And it's created a lot of misconception out there about people's communication patterns, men's and women's. Um,
Mm.
and I really want to mention this because I think a lot of people have this ingrained in them from that book, because it's almost become like a stereotype that people have taken on. And it's actually not true. It turns out that women and men are not that different in communication, and maybe the way they use their brain, but not in communication. Men aren't more logical, women aren't more emotional. In fact, communication is very plastic. And as Deb has mentioned with the HBDI, there's actually those four quadrants, which are different, probably different parts of the brain that we're accessing or using, and sensors as well to communicate. Then you can shift across those. You can actually use different parts of your brain. So I read Women and Men Are From Earth this week. Someone put in there. That's
We
interesting.
are.
Yeah, we are. We are from Earth. Now,
And
Reese and Carruthers from the University of Rochester. Actually, Reese is doing her PhD in this topic, and she ended up publishing her findings in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology in February this year. Now, the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology has been around for years. It's one of the most reputable journals, scientific psychological journals in the States, and worldwide. So it's a very, very, very good journal. They compiled data from about 13,000 participants, and studies on sex, mostly of sex differences. In other words, looking at all those participants were males and females and looking at how they varied across a range of physical to psychological traits and habits and characteristics. And the psychological ones were things like, personality profiles and looking at the five big personality traits. And really interesting what they found. What they found is that physically men were taller and heavier, of course, because that's just just the way they're structured genetically, physically. But they found little, or if no, differences on a range of psychological traits. Um, and and these traits I'm talking about are things like assertiveness. Even though there was a large overlap, there was more sort of overlap than there was differences. And the important thing here is that individual differences were far more important than gender in predicting the way a person communicates. Okay, and
Mm.
just to highlight this and just to tell you how important this research is, um, what we're talking about here is they were looking at surveys on relationship interdependence, how much they thought interdependence was important in a relationship, how much they were doing that, intimacy, sexuality, and they also looked at studies where they were looking at the five big personality traits, which are things that you already know, like extroversion, neuroticism, which is high energy, low energy, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. So they measured all that, they number crunched it, and after 13,000 individuals across a number of studies, we call these meta-analyses, they found there were absolutely zero differences. So I really wanted to add that at the end because I thought it's important
Mm.
that you focus in on things like the HBDI and work out what your communication pattern is, not to fall into the stereotypes that have been ingrained in us from pop psychology like the John Gray stuff, um, and from other sources as well, and just from the way we see men and women. And there's some interesting stuff online about that as well. Okay, so we've come to the end. Look, I want to really thank you, Deb, for spending an hour with us and sharing some of your great knowledge and experience about communication. Have you enjoyed yourself?
I have. I've had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for asking me. I love having interactive webinars with people and helping people because that is my passion. And I really want to make a difference to people's lives. And my mission is to help you and give you the tools so that you never have to come and see me again, as much as I'm
Okay.
sure you'd love to.
What a great, what a great idea. Okay. All right. Well, Deb Smith and everyone who's come on board, thank you so, so much for coming on board. Really appreciate you attending and
Thank
listening
you.
to a great interview and really appreciate your support on this. Listen in. We're going next week, next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have another special guest on hot and heavy interviews. I'm not sure who it's going to be. I've got a couple of people, but I'm going to tune into your email. You're going to learn who it is. It's going to get hotter than ever in our interview room. Okay, so thanks very much, Deb, and goodbye to everyone. Take care, everyone. See ya.
Thanks. See you later.